This is part 2 in our series of Tanzu application platform. And in this video, we're going to install all of the prerequisites that will be necessary for us to install the TAP components onto our Kubernetes clusters. And we'll do that in a separate video. Now you'll see here that I'm in the tap/CLI/multi-TMC folder in our cloned repository. And I'm going to execute tap multi-AWS prereqs as well as tap multi-Azure prereqs. And this will be to install these onto our 3 EKS clusters and our 1 AKS cluster. You'll also notice these folders here with the CF suffix. These were scripts I was using prior to using TMC, and these were using CloudFormation templates that would spin up everything. Okay, this would spin up the VPC, the subnets, the EKS clusters themselves, as well as these prerequisites. But since I turned to TMC, I only need to execute the prereqs in this script because all of the other provisioning was done in previous scripts, the VPC, the EKS cluster, and so on. Now, before I go ahead and execute this script, there are just a few important things that I want to touch upon. So again, we're collecting our AWS account details. We're collecting our PivNet credentials from AWS Secrets Manager. Now, this is not for the purpose of logging into network.pivotal.io like we've done in previous videos, but these credentials will be the same in order to log into VMware's private container registry called Harbor. Okay, we'll look at that, talk about that more in just a moment. Okay, you'll see that we're installing TAP version 1.6.1. And we'll be doing that on our 3 EKS clusters. Then we're going to loop through those clusters. And the first thing that we're going to do is associate an OIDC provider using the EKS CTL CLI. Then we scroll down and we're going to install the Tanzu Cluster Essentials package, which was downloaded in a previous video. And it includes this script to allow us to install that. So here is the URL to Harbor. Let's go ahead and open that in my browser. All right, I've got it open already. So I can go ahead and use my Pivotal credentials to log in here. And we're not going to see anything real exciting here because for whatever reason, the access permissions to the portal just don't show anything. And that's fine. We're not going to come here to download anything. We're going to call the APIs through the script, or we're going to use one of the Cluster Essentials tools to do that. Now, if you're not familiar with Harbor, Harbor is VMware's container registry that organizations turn to when they want to host their container images privately on premises, and they do not want to, or they can't for compliance reasons, host those on public cloud or Docker Hub for that matter. Okay, so Harbor can be installed onto your private data center. Now, the purpose of this whole script really is to export the images out of Harbor and into our Azure Container Registry, which we have right here, which I've named Tanzu Application Registry. And if we click on the Repositories tab, you'll see that we have nothing listed, but that will change in short order once we execute this script. It's going to export all of the container images out of Harbor and import them into this container registry. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn back to the remaining parts of the script here. So after we do that, we are going to, before I continue here, I have to make a couple of suggestions here. Perhaps somebody from the TAP team is watching, though I doubt it. These environment variables, I've got 2 environment variables pointing to the same URL. Okay, I've got this one, install registry hostname, and I've also got this one, image package registry hostname, pointing to the same thing. It would probably make a little bit more sense having one environment variable. And secondly, the second suggestion is a better naming convention here. So install registry hosting, I mean, that could be anything. That could be the Harbor registry. It could be my Azure registry. Source registry, I think, would be a much more descriptive name there. And then also my Azure Container Registry target registry host name would be a great descriptive name. So I apologize, folks. It is a little confusing, but I am just sticking to the documentation, okay? Because I don't want to have any problems. I don't know if this image package CLI is expecting these exact names, so that's why I had not, I've been reluctant to try and do those suggestions in my own scripts at the expense of failure and not getting this to work properly. All right, so we'll just have to deal with that. So we're setting those environment variables so that this image copy command, so that the image package CLI can copy those images from Harbor into our Azure Container Registry. And this process is going to take about 15 to 20 minutes because it has to move over 200, maybe 250 images at the size of about 8 gigs to 9 gigabytes. That doesn't sound like much, but nevertheless, the network traffic between the two, it takes that amount of time. So as we go down here, we're going to then loop through all of our clusters. And the first thing that we're going to do for each one is create this tap install namespace so that we can create a secret with our Azure Container Registry credentials here so that the cluster, whatever components or tools need to access, fetch images. And that's exactly what it's going to do here. So it's going to install the packages in our local repository within the cluster so that we can do the actual install in the next video. And then lastly here, you'll see that I'm downloading this sample code, which is Tanzu Java web app. That is a simple app that we can use to test that the tap installation went well. And the reason I'm cloning it is because if time permits, we'll be able to, check some of the testing pipeline where I'll go in and change a unit test to fail, change the code and check it back in, and we can see the consequences of that action. I'm not going to go ahead and execute this script now. I'm going to do this offline because it really doesn't do anything much of interest here, except for that long process of copying the images. Okay, so I'll go ahead and execute these two scripts offline, and in the next video, we will go ahead and proceed with installing the tap components.